Hey there, I'm Mari, and today I'm going to tell you the story of how Karl Jacobs almost never existed. If you aren't subscribed, make sure that you subscribe and hit the bell so that you don't miss the next story. If you aren't familiar with Karl Jacobs, he is a popular Minecraft streamer who is frequently involved in Mr. Beast's challenge videos and began being featured on screen in 2020. One of my personal favorite videos with Karl was the challenge video, I Went Back to Boy Scouts for a Day. Things lined up nicely for Karl to become part of Mr. Beast's crew. But what you may not know about Karl is the story of how he almost never existed. That's right, there almost was no Karl Jacobs. It all started over 100 years ago when Karl's great-grandfather, Anthony Moretto, was born in Haverstraw, Rockland County, New York on August 18, 1913. His parents, Giovanni Moretto and Adelarada Naduccio, both immigrated from Italy to the United States before they married in 1910 in Rockland County, New York. Like many immigrants to the United States, Giovanni and Adelarada Americanized their names and were known as John and Dorothy. The Morettos made their home in Haverstraw, New York, where their 4 children were born. They lived near an inlet of the Haverstraw Bay, and when Anthony was small, his father John worked for the railroad, and his mother Dorothy cared for their children at home. Anthony and his siblings attended grade school where they learned to read and write. The Great Depression hit the area hard, and Haverstraw, which was known for its brick-making factories, faced massive shutdowns, and over 1,000 people lost their jobs from the economic collapse. In 1930, by the time he was 16 years old, Anthony left school and picked up work cutting fabric for a coat shop. In 1940, when Anthony was 27 years old, he lived with his parents and brother in the same home he grew up in. He worked cutting leather for a company called Spiewak and Sons. The company was started by Isaac Spiewak, who was a native of Warsaw, Poland, and came to New York in 1903. His ultimate goal in creating his company was to be able to bring his family to America. And eventually, all 6 sons immigrated and joined the family business, which is still a privately held family business today. Spiewak introduced the first police jackets in 1923 for the New York State Mounted Troopers. And during World War II, Spiewak supported the American cause by delivering more than 1 million units of flying suits, bomber jackets, peacoats, and other specialized gear. When World War II started, about 1,000 Haverstraw residents bravely answered the call to serve, including Anthony. Anthony was working for Spiewak and Sons in 1940 when he registered for the draft. And he may have helped create the very equipment he would later wear during his military service. The United States didn't enter World War II until December 1941, but the United States instituted the Selective Training Service Act of 1940, which required all men between ages 21 and 36 to register for the draft. This was the first time a draft was instituted during peacetime in the history of the United States, because the country had not yet declared official entry into the war. The age range required for draftees later expanded from 18 to 64 years old, and by the end of the war, over 50 million men had registered for the draft, and 10 million served in World War II. Anthony was 27 when he registered for the draft. His draft card provides a description of his appearance. He stood at 5 feet 7 inches and weighed 160 pounds and had black hair, brown eyes, and a light complexion. While he registered for the draft in October 1940, he chose to enlist on March 28, 1941. Nearly 24 men from Anthony's hometown gave their lives defending the United States, and Anthony was almost numbered among those men. Anthony enlisted as an infantryman in the United States Army, where he fought overseas in the Rhineland Campaign. The Rhineland Campaign began in September 1944 and lasted until March of 1945. 3 Allied army groups extended from the North Sea to Switzerland with the object of waging a final assault against the Nazi homeland, ending the war. The Rhineland Campaign included several military operations, some of which were less than successful. They suffered from lack of supplies and freezing weather. By the end of the Rhineland Campaign, over 240,000 Americans were dead, with another 172,450 wounded. In 1944, Anthony was admitted to a military hospital after he was badly injured in battle. A shell exploded and fragments were embedded into Anthony's thigh and foot. Although doctors tried to remove as much as they could, his wounds bothered him all his life, and as an elderly man, he still had shavings coming out of his skin. Anthony was awarded a Purple Heart and the Combat Infantryman's Badge for injuries he sustained to his leg in the line of duty. The Purple Heart is awarded for being wounded or killed in any action against an enemy of the United States or as a result of an act of an enemy or opposing armed forces. It was first established as a military honor by George Washington and is the oldest military award still given to the United States military members. During World War II, 1.5 million Purple Heart medals were manufactured, since the anticipated number of casualties was expected to be so high. By the end of the war, 500,000 medals remained, and those left have been in stock to be available to be awarded immediately to military servicemen and women. The Combat Infantryman Badge is awarded to infantrymen and special soldiers who fought in active ground combat. The award was created in November 1943 to increase both military morale and prestige for military service. Infantrymen face a greater risk of being killed or wounded than nearly any other military specialty. Infantrymen served in some of the worst conditions and received the least public recognition. The Combat Infantryman Badge is the highest of 2 awards that can be earned by infantrymen. Had Anthony's injuries been located anywhere else, or if he hadn't received good medical care, Anthony's wounds might have become infected and he could have died. If that had happened, Karl Jacobs would have never existed, as it wasn't until Anthony returned home after an honorable discharge that he married Karl's great-grandmother in Utica, New York on September 29, 1945. Following the war, Anthony and his wife became the parents of 3 children. Around 1950, Anthony and his family moved to a home neighboring 4 cemeteries. They raised their family there and enjoyed family barbecues and playing on the cemetery lawns. Anthony opened an Italian-American restaurant off Route 9 in Haverstraw in 1956 and owned it until 1973. Anthony died at his home at the age of 71 on January 17, 1985. So Anthony died about 13 years before Karl was born, so Karl never knew his great-grandfather. If Anthony hadn't survived combat during World War II, he would have never married Karl's great-grandmother. And if he hadn't married Karl's great-grandmother, Karl's grandparent would have never been born. If Karl's grandparent was never born, then Karl's parent wouldn't exist. And that's how Karl Jacobs almost never existed. One small change in Anthony's fate could have changed the trajectory of the Moretto family forever and could have resulted in a world with no Karl. Sometimes we don't realize what a miracle it is that we even exist at all. And we don't know the stories that made us who we are, when we are, and where we are. I want to share some of these stories with you. So leave a comment below and tell me the YouTubers whose stories you want to know about. And let's explore some fascinating stories together. If you enjoy learning about history and want to learn more about World War II, be sure to check out this video from Extra History and show Spiewak and Son some love by checking out their video and let them know that BabblingDabblingMom sent you. Until then, go live your own story.